Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Bittersweet Uncomfyness podcast. This episode is a very special episode for me. The reason why is because number 10 has always been my lucky number, my special number. I always felt like this number has something for me, and it's kind of weird, the connection I have to number 10, but I just love the number itself. And so, yeah, because of that, I want to do this episode a bit differently. I want to do something different than the usual. And in this episode, I want to introduce you guys to who I am and what Bittersweet Uncomfyness is and why this podcast is happening. So before we start, as usual, I'm Joe, and I hope you're not comfortable. But if you are, then let's get uncomfortable together. Hi. First of all, I would like to express my deepest gratitude for everyone who's been on the journey with me in the last 10 weeks. It has been an absolute blast for me. I'm having so much fun doing this, and it's filling me with so much happiness and positivity. And I'm very thankful for every person who also reached out and gave me feedback or shared some stories with me. That means the world to me, and it's a big part of why I'm doing what I'm doing. I love doing this, and I love the way that you are responding to it. If you have anything, any notes, anything, feel free to hit me up on Instagram or wherever you feel comfortable. And I want to thank my team, my friends and my family who are pushing me every day to keep doing what I'm doing and keep getting better. It's an amazing, amazing opportunity to have such an amazing team around me. And now I have my producer, Amer, an amazing soul, unbelievably creative, does his job with so much love and so much enthusiasm that you feel like you just want to keep up with him and you want to deliver the best you can because you have such a producer. If you are looking to do anything that has to do with media production, he's your guy. He's going to be linked, his website's going to be linked in the description of this podcast, and you can just hit him up and collab. He loves working, he does it incredibly well. He also won an award for a documentary he did. So hit Amer up. I'm sure he's gonna love to help you with your projects. So as I said, this episode is about me and the Bittersweet Uncomfyness podcast. So I'm Joe. This I always said in the introduction. But originally, I'm Yusuf, and I was born and raised in Damascus, Syria. Up until I was 14 years old, I was living there with my family. And shortly before I turned 14, the war in Syria happened. And my family felt the urge that okay, we need to move away after I was put in certain dangerous situations and I witnessed several bombings and shootings, and it was getting pretty intense. One of them was also very close to my school, and the other one was very close to our house where we lived. And the last one was the one where we decided to leave because the shooting came up to our street. And yeah, that's when my parents told us to pack our things. We didn't pack much, actually, and we just left. We went to Lebanon for a while, and then we decided to move to Vienna because my family has the Austrian citizenship, so that would have worked out perfectly. Now, as a 14-year-old teenager coming up in Syria and actually having experienced a kind of trauma from the war, moving to a European city, it was a huge culture shock for me. I had no idea what to do. I didn't know the language, and I didn't know anything. I didn't know the rules, the laws. I had no idea about the city before I came here. None. And when we arrived here, I felt so out of place. I didn't feel comfortable, especially me being a foreigner who doesn't speak the language in a city that I'm soon going to be calling my home. So I felt like I needed to change my identity in order to fit in. So that's when my name changed to Joseph, because it's a German name, and I felt like, okay, people can spell it correctly and feel more connected to me because I have a similar name to what they were used to. After a while, I didn't like the name. I felt like this name didn't suit me as a person, as my character. It didn't fit me much. So I changed it to Joseph to just be a bit more, a foreigner, but maybe not the kind of foreigner that was not very welcome in this community or in this culture at the time. Now Vienna is a very, very international city. It's amazing to see that. But 10 years ago when I came here, it wasn't that way. It was a bit more conservative. People didn't speak that much English, and you truly needed to find a way to make it work with them. It took me quite some time to understand the language and speak it. It took me half a year, or let's say a year, to be able to speak with people and even do my exams in school and stuff. I did it incredibly fast. I wanted and I needed to learn this language in order to be able to be seen as someone who fits in this community, in this city. And by doing that, I went through several identity shifts because I couldn't be the 14-year-old Yusuf that was living in Syria after I came here. My identity automatically changed. Now, I didn't change it intentionally. A part of it was changed intentionally, obviously, the name and so on. But my character started to evolve differently. My character started to see things differently. And I noticed that after I started talking to my friends who stayed back in Damascus. And I realized how differently we think now and how differently we communicate. I realized that I have become a completely different person. And that made me understand that the environment you're in plays a huge role in your development and evolvement as a person. So when you're surrounding yourself with people who are completely different than you, you will automatically start shifting towards becoming more like them. Because we have this fear of being an imposter or imposter syndrome, we want to fit in, we want to have connections, we want to feel loved, and we want to love. So we start changing our character accordingly. And when I noticed this shift, I noticed that I changed my name. And after a couple of years, even the Joseph became Joe. It was my nickname, but this is the name that I felt suited me the most at the time and still does. I still see myself as Joe and not as Yusuf or Joseph or Joseph. Of course, every identity I had over the past couple of years will always stay with me because every single one of them was like a piece to the puzzle that now is taking a very nice shape. It's not complete, and I think it's not going to be complete until the last breath of my life. But those pieces were very, very important pieces. They were essential to make this puzzle what it is so far. And I accepted the fact that this identity shift that I went through did cause me some trouble finding myself and understanding myself because I didn't know which identity was thinking at the time. And that's when I realized we are born with a certain identity, and I talked about that in the last episode. But this identity is not set in stone for us. We can still go out and change our identity to suit us more. The name that you have on your passport is just your name, but it shouldn't build your identity, or you shouldn't build your identity around that name. Your parents chose that name for a reason, and it will always be with you. This name is always going to be a part of you, but you can always choose how you want to be. You don't have to match any kind of prejudice that is associated to that name, right? And I see a lot of people who have very common names, but are very different and live life in their own sense. So you can choose your identity. You can choose who you want to be. Be who you desire to be, and don't be who you were set out to be. Change the narrative. Find the one that you want and stick to it and evolve in it. Evolve within it. So when I moved to Vienna at 14, I finished school pretty quickly. I think it took me 5 years to finish high school. I finished just in time. When I was 18, I graduated. But around the time of my high school graduation, my life was starting to slowly fall apart because my family started to break. My father left and went back to Damascus, so my parents got a divorce. My mom was a single mom of two, of me and my little brother, who's 10 years younger than me. And she was working day and night at our family restaurant to make it work, to help us throughout our school life and help us get to our next stages. So she was our backbone, and she still is. She's an amazing, amazing mother. What she did for me, she's an iron woman, truly an iron woman. But when this divorce thing happened, I didn't have time to process it correctly, let's say, because at the same time, my first love dumped me after 2 years of being together. So I got two humongous slaps almost a month apart. And everything was blurry, and I didn't know what to do, where to go, and how to actually deal with this kind of heartbreak, because it's a double heartbreak. And after those two things happened, I was preparing myself for my finals to graduate from school. So I needed to focus on that. And I put all my energy and effort into doing that. And I felt like, okay, the breakup and the divorce of my parents doesn't even matter. I'm strong, I can do this, and I'll just finish school and see how we go and start university or whatever. And it was until years later that I realized that it actually did a lot of damage that I should have dealt with at the time. But then again, everything happens for a reason, and I had to go through it this way to learn so much about myself, about my strength, about my limits, and about my patience. I learned so much in this phase. And I also learned that I shouldn't postpone dealing with things. When something happens, I confront it, I face it, and I deal with it on the spot, because this helps me the most to avoid this kind of situation again, or to extract the learnings that I want out of it. After I graduated, I went to work at our family restaurant. I was already working there while I was still in school. And I started working at the gym. And I loved working so much. 2 or 3 months after, I started studying at the university. I started studying and majoring in political science, which took me, I think, a semester to realize that I don't want to do this. I truly don't want to do this, because I didn't feel like I can completely associate with it. And I was in love with working way more than studying. Even though I've always loved studying, I was always the kind of person who liked to study to become better and to have awesome grades. But in this shift of my life, with everything that had happened, and my personality evolving, and my character changing, and my identity and everything, I realized, no, I am more of a working kind of person than a studying kind of person. I didn't know that before because I didn't work that much. But when I was in the world of work and business and growing, and this gym I was working at was a small private gym, it's from a franchise, and there was only one branch. And when I started working there, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the concept of gym and training and talking to people and learning and selling and service and so on and so forth. And I realized that I can learn so much if I stick to it, because this gym is going to expand. And I was lucky enough to actually help with the expansion. I opened and ran 16 gyms by the age of 20. And it was an immense pressure, obviously. When you're 20, you have no idea what's going on, especially if your plan was a completely different one. My expectations were completely different. I thought I'm going to be studying, I'm going to graduate when I'm 21, then I'm going to do a master's and in whatever, and then see how life goes, right? But when I was working and I decided to stop uni for a while, and I focused on working at the gym, I even quit the family business. And I focused on building this gym with my bosses, who were at the time very close friends of mine. And till today, Christian is my idol in many aspects, and one of my closest friends. He's like a brother to me, a big brother. And while I was growing with them and this expansion was happening, the stress I couldn't feel that much because I was in it. I never took a step back to see how I'm doing. I was just going at it in basically autopilot, actually. I was just functioning. I was just doing the best I can. And after 2 years, when I was 20 and I was running 16 gyms, and I was opening gyms almost every month in different regions of Austria, I had to pause myself, right? But I couldn't because work was so important. I was so happy with it. So I kept on working and working and working. And then in 2018, where I was still 20, I got my wake-up call. This wake-up call is a very emotional one for me. It literally paused my life. And it was literally a phone call that I got at, I think, 9 in the morning on the day of my brother's birthday, or even a day after I got the call. And it was a friend of mine, and he told me that one of our close friends and a person I consider a mentor to me, who showed me love and how to become extroverted and how to talk to people and how to be confident with yourself and happy with yourself. He informed me that this person ended their life. And when I heard it, like, I still get goosebumps every time I think about it, and it's been 4 years. But it doesn't get easier, because how do you deal with something like this? How do you deal with the information that a person you look up to has decided to end their life and actually did it? And the way they did it was also very painful. It truly hit me very, very strongly. And so when I got this phone call, I obviously had a mental breakdown in the moment. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. And I wasn't in Vienna at the time. I was opening a gym in Carinthia. And I just sat in the middle of the street on the floor, and I just started crying my eyes out. I was screaming, crying, and I couldn't understand what's happening. I felt like all the pressure and all the stress of the last 4 years since the divorce of my parents and the breakup, and working this much, and the load of work that I had to do. I was working every day, the whole day, for I think a year at the time. Everything came on top of this news, but this news was so heavy for me that, of course, I've heard of suicide before. And it's a topic that we should not neglect. We should talk about it. We should try to help people find solutions. We should invest in institutions that truly can help avoid suicide, and push those suicide hotlines further for people who have suicidal thoughts, because it is not a joke. It is literally one of the most painful things a person can go through. Not us, the person who has those thoughts. A person who thinks about ending their lives. Can you imagine how hard it is to take this decision? And even harder to actually follow through with it? I truly have no words for this topic. Like, I think about it a lot, and I talked about it a lot, and I even went to therapy, but I feel like I dealt with it in a way that helped me understand and helped me be motivated and inspired, and it woke me up and made me realize that I want to do more than just study at a university, or have a good paying job, or I don't know, become a CEO of a company, or that. All that didn't matter, because I realized that life can end so quickly. And I decided, or I made it my goal, to just be there for people more and listen to them attentively and actually pay attention to how they're feeling. Because we often ask, how are you? But the answer that we expect and the answer that we get is most of the time shallow. It's a good or alright or not bad. But this is not the true answer. Everyone has baggage. Everyone has something they want to talk about. Everyone has something they want to share. And by asking the correct questions, we can always get there. We can always understand people better. And by just understanding and listening to people, you are helping them more than you can imagine. Because it's more than a lot of people would do. A lot of people would ask, how are you? And then just move on to the next question. But dive a bit deeper into the people you love and their whereabouts and how they're doing in life. Ask them and follow up. Don't just ask one question. When they tell you something, follow up. Show them that you're interested. This helps them so much to feel heard, because people who attempt suicide are people who don't feel heard, who don't feel understood. And by just being there and listening to them, and this is what I promised myself. I promised myself I don't want to talk to people on a shallow level anymore. I don't want to have just a small talk of, how are you, how are you doing, everything's fine, how's life, what are you doing, are you studying, working, okay, no, it's cool, let's hang out. I want to talk to people, I want to learn from them, and I want to teach them as much as I can. And I want to be there. And this is the first thing I told my best friends after I came back to Vienna. After the news, I told them, please guys, let's do a pact that whenever one of us is feeling down, not heard or misunderstood, please come up to us and let's have honest conversations about it. Let's talk about it. Let's find solutions together, because when you're in a depression or when you're in a low point of your life, it's very hard to come up with solutions by yourself, especially if you don't talk about it and you just think about it the whole time. You're in the middle of it. You need someone who's not that emotionally involved, or someone who can view it from the outside. Maybe it's one thing you would have never thought about, or maybe it's something you knew but you just needed to hear from the outside. So just share, just open up. When you feel like your energy is low, just open up and talk to people, and don't fear anything. We have this thing that we only share with people we trust with our lives. I understand that. I truly do. But this makes it so hard to talk to people, right? Because sometimes it's very hard to talk to your best friends or to your partners about something, and it's way easier to talk about it with a stranger. A lot of people do it with taxi drivers, that they start opening up to taxi drivers. That's also why you do it with when you go to therapy, the psychologist. You don't know them, so you feel free to open up the way you want to talk. And this is why I am an open book. I share with people as much as I can, because first of all, I know that they might learn something from it. I'm not talking to them with the intention of teaching them, but maybe through this talk, they reflect on their own lives and find a certain solution for something they've been looking for, or a certain lesson that they want to pass on to somebody, or to help somebody else. So when we talk to people and we talk honestly and openly, we have such a huge impact. We can actually change so much. We can help people have better lives by just listening and sharing. Those are two things that are so easy to do, and they cost us nothing but time. And this time you're spending with this person anyways, so might as well use it to the best of your abilities. So those shallow talks, obviously I have them every day, but I always try to go a bit deeper in every conversation. Even with the cashier, when I'm somewhere buying something at a supermarket, I always like to ask how they are, how their day is going, what if they're happy. Those questions sometimes open up a conversation, and this conversation might be something they need so much, and also might be something that you need so much. So don't fear talking to people. Go up to them and talk to them and be yourself. Nobody's gonna hate you, and if they reject talking to you, it's fine. They're not ready to talk. It's completely okay. You did what you thought you should have done, and they're not ready to talk about it, or they don't trust you enough, or they don't feel comfortable with you, it's completely okay. It's not personal. You have good intentions, and that's the thing that counts. Everything else doesn't matter. Everything else doesn't matter. When you have good intentions, and you know you have good intentions, pure intentions, just go and talk to people. Talk to people you love, talk to people you don't know, talk to people and listen to them. Don't be the talker, be more the listener. If you want to help people, obviously. And you can also be the talker if you feel like you want to reflect and you want help. Just approach people and talk to them. Even if it's your friends, just talk to them. They're your friends for a reason, and they will not see you differently just because you're going through a tough time. Instead, they will feel valued that you are opening up to them and you're trusting them with something. So you're adding a sense of importance to them. And a lot of people want to feel this. They want to feel needed. They want to feel important. And by doing this, this is exactly what you're giving them. So might as well profit from it as well. It's a win-win situation. So let's go back to suicide. It is something very, very dark, something we cannot comprehend. And it's something that it was very difficult for me to accept, that this actually happened and that this person actually decided to take their lives, because I didn't see it coming. I never had an honest, open conversation with this person, and I realized this only after this person killed themselves. Unbelievable. I couldn't believe that I never had a conversation with this person. I considered him to be my mentor, to be my idol, my hero at the time. But I never had an honest talk with them. And this is why I feel like it was very difficult to accept it. But after a while I did, because I have no other option. I have no other choice but to accept it, but to move on, but to understand that life will continue. As harsh as it sounds, but whatever happens around us can never stop our lives. And I realized this when my grandfather passed away recently, last year. I realized life has no chill. Time never stops for you. Never. And it will never stop. Because when I got the news that my grandfather died, or when I got the news that my mentor had killed himself, in both times I went out to the street and I was walking in tears and crying my eyes out, and I looked around and the world was normal. It was a normal day. The cars were driving, were honking, the people were laughing and talking and running, people were walking their dogs, talking on the phone, and so on and so forth. For me, while I was walking, my life was on pause. I had no idea what's going on. I felt like time had just stopped. But when I looked around and I realized it can never stop, and it will never stop, no matter how you feel, that's when I understood that I always have to move past things. And I always have to keep moving, because I only have the chance to live this life once. And there was this trend a couple of years ago of YOLO, you only live once. That is so true. That is so true. Maybe we live more than once. Maybe we get reincarnated. Doesn't matter what you believe in. But this life, this body, this spirit is in this constellation only gonna be there once. So might as well live every moment of it and try to move with life. Never just stop. Even when you're relaxing, you're still moving with life. You're still moving forward. You're still doing something for yourself. But you can never just lock yourself in. I locked myself in because of COVID for 2 years, and it fucked me up. My confidence was completely gone. I couldn't maintain a healthy relationship with my ex. I didn't feel comfortable with myself anymore. I didn't feel comfortable with my friends and my family, and I just locked myself in. And I told myself, yeah, I love being at home anyways, which I did. But I actually didn't at the same time, because I figured that out later, that I wasn't actually happy at home. In hindsight, we can always reflect better. But I actually didn't enjoy being at home that much, because when I started going out again and my friends kept asking me to go out, and at first I used to say no a lot because I felt really good at home. I felt like I was in my comfort zone too much. And when I started going out again, I realized that the world was moving on and the world didn't stop, but mine did. So when I started going out again and I started entering the metro and the buses and so on and so forth, I felt like so unsure of where I am and who I am, and if people will find me weird. And I didn't know how to interact with people anymore, which was one of the best things I used to be good at, you know? And through that, I realized that by locking myself in, I completely lost a complete skill set that I had built over time. By staying in my comfort zone, all the skills that I had were starting to like evaporate, and I needed to get them back. And I started doing it by pushing myself to do more things that are completely out of my comfort zone, which is also the reason why I decided to call this podcast the Bittersweet Uncomfyness podcast. Because I realized that by getting uncomfortable, there is a bittersweet side to it. The bitterness is the beginning. When I started going out again, I started to feel scared and unsure and unsafe, and I didn't know if I was living normally according to other people. You know, if I looked normal, I wasn't confident at all, and it was very uncomfortable. It was very bitter. It was scary, to say the least. And the sweetness that I got afterwards is that now I'm back to normal life because I pushed myself to leave that comfort zone. And this is why the bittersweetness is so important, and it's in everything we do in life. Everything we start, we're not as good at when we started. When I started this podcast, the first episode took me multiple tries. And now I can record an episode by just sitting here and talking because I feel more comfortable with it, because I feel better in it. And I had to push myself to do it. I had to go through the uncomfortable phase of feeling unsure of what I'm doing and if I'm doing it correctly or whatever. So if there is something that you want to do, whether it's a podcast, a blog, a YouTube channel, or a new job or a company, whatever it is, if you have an idea and you want to work on it and you truly know that you actually want to, just start. Start now. The earlier you start, the better. And this is the only thing that I really want to urge you. If there is something that you want to do, just do it. Just start it now and see how it goes. You will evolve through it. The first couple of days, weeks, maybe months will be tough and you'll feel unsure and not good enough. But who's good at anything before they even started? Nobody. You might think you are. And then when you do it, you realize, oh, damn, I'm not that good anyway. I'm not that good. And this will change if you keep being persistent and the dedication level is high, and if you keep working towards it. You will have a sweet reward at the end. You will learn so much about yourself. You will develop so many new skills. You will evolve in a new person. You will have a new skill set to work with in the future. So might as well just start it. The way I started this podcast, the way every podcaster started their podcast, they all started with one episode. Everyone starts with one episode, and then the next one comes, and the next one, and the next one. And after a while, you feel more comfortable in it. You feel better. And it's the same in everything. So whatever you want to do, just start. When I was working at the gym, a lot of people came up to me and wanted to check out the gym. And I always had this question where I asked them, okay, how long have you been thinking about joining a gym? Or how long have you been thinking about training and getting in shape or whatever? And sometimes the answers shocked me. Some people told me they've been thinking about it for 3 years, but they hadn't acted up on it yet. They went to gyms, they checked them out, and then they left. Because the person at the gym who was supposed to sell them the membership didn't even ask them that, didn't even know why they're trying to join the gym. For me, it was very important for me to understand what's their motivation of coming here in the first place. Because only then can I understand whether or not it's important for them to actually start, and if it's important for me to push them to start. And By doing that, I realized that a lot of people didn't join the gym because they didn't feel like they're in shape enough, which didn't make sense because you come to the gym to get in shape. But they said they'd feel weird with their bodies in the gym full of people who are fit. And I always told them, like, those people started out of shape as well. Nobody started in the shape that they have right now. After a couple of months, you will see change, and this change will make you feel more comfortable. And that's the bittersweetness. The bitter part of going to the gym and starting is you feel like everyone's looking at you because you're out of shape and you're out of place, and you cannot do the weights they do, and so on and so forth. But the sweet reward after a couple of months of persistent hard work and dedication, you will find yourself in the gym being comfortable with the people around you. And this is the beauty of it. This is the beauty of everything we do. Once we start to actually put in the work, first of all, it becomes a fun activity for us. And second of all, if we do it without any expectations, if we start something with the expectation that we're going to be fucking good in a month, we already are setting ourselves up for failure, because you don't know how far you'll be in a month. You don't know how much work and dedication you can put in or how much you can develop in this month. So don't set a timeline. Just say, I want to be better every time I do it. A 1% of improvement is enough. If you improve 1% every day, this compounding effect, it will grow exponential. After a while, this 1% will feel like crazy. You'll be at a level that you probably didn't even expect a long time ago. So it's better to not expect anything. It's better to just say, I want to do this because I love it. I wanted to do this podcast because I promised myself to do something where I talk to people about topics that are important for me and for them and for mental health. And I want to spread it as much as I can to everyone who needs to listen to it or wants to listen to it. And that's why I did it. I did not do it with the expectation of growing this podcast to have millions of listeners and subscribers and so on and so forth. If that comes, it's more than welcome. I'll be very happy. But I'm doing this genuinely out of love and out of... it gives me a sense of purpose. And we all look for something that gives us a sense of purpose, especially when we feel like we are of no use right now. And when we're at a low point in life, we don't dare to try something new or to start something new because we are so trapped in our thoughts and in this whole process. And we always think about the future. We always think about, okay, if I started now, what will I do with it in a year or two or whatever? Or what is the main goal? Why are you setting so many goals before you even start? Start, and then through the process, you will find out which goals you want to set, which goals are realistic, and which goals are achievable and maintainable. And this is exactly how it is with this podcast. This podcast is going to have so many projects that are going to come, and they all opened up to me. The door is all opened as soon as I actually started dropping an episode every week. And it's been only 10 weeks. And so many opportunities have came my way. And I'm now truly at the peak of my purposefulness. I feel like I have such a purpose that I want to fulfill. And you can have that with everything that you want to do. But you actually need to find the main reason why you want to do it, and not the reason that you think you might want to do it. Like, for example, going to the gym, being in shape to impress other people. That is not the goal. Because if that's your goal, then you will achieve a certain kind of physique and then you will stop because you're impressive. But if your goal is to be fit and to stay fit for as long as you can, and you want to grow old and stay fit to travel the world or whatever, that's a completely different why. And this why will drive you to always go to the gym even when you don't feel like it. Because you remember that you want to be fit. You want to be fitter, and you want to be able to live a long, healthy, fit life with you doing as many things as you want. So just work on your why. Find the why that will drive you, that will fill you with the purpose, and just start. Just fucking start. Thank you so much for listening to this episode again. It's been a beautiful journey, and I talked about it in the beginning of the episode. 10 weeks had gone by, and I'm unbelievably thankful for each one of you. Thank you so much for sharing what you're sharing with me, for your feedback, for your messages. And this is exactly what I want out of this podcast. I want to interact with people. I want to interact with you guys and hear about your stories and learn from you as much as you want to learn from me. So it's a win-win situation for both of us. As usual, my social media will be linked in the description of this podcast. And as I said, my producer Amer will also be linked in that description. If you have any project that you want to work on, whether it's a short movie, a documentary, a video that you want to do, or whatever, contact him. He does an amazing job, and he will literally make you feel comfortable doing it. So step out of your comfort zone, start doing more things, and let's have a blast throughout this journey. And see you all next week.